Hey there everybody, this is AJ for the Mighty Glue Stick channel. We're going to explore Eberron today, and by the end of this video you should have a pretty good basic understanding of the setting and everything involved in how Eberron came to be and what it currently is and its history. So let's go. According to myth, 3 mighty dragons made the world that is and the world above. Golden Cerberus was the source of all magic, gentle Eberron was the fountain of life, cruel Khorvaire was the master of secret knowledge and the powers that lurk in the darkness. They were the most powerful of all dragons, primal draconic gods. Leaving the prime material plane and its affairs behind, they ventured into the limitless void of the deep ethereal plane. There, beyond the restrictions and dictates of the other powers, they unleashed formidable magical power, the likes of which is beyond most mortals' comprehension. Even so, it took all 3 of them working seamlessly together to achieve what they did there. In this void, they created a new material plane, enfolded by coexistent transitive planes, the astral plane and the ethereal plane. Within Eberron's astral plane, 13 planes revolved in a complex orbit around the material plane. These planes were a combination of features of inner planes and outer planes. Some have an elemental nature, some have alignment tendencies, and others are simply alien worlds. These planes are home to all the extraplanar creatures detailed in the monster manual. In contrast to the core D&D cosmology, these planes are not the homes of the deities, and only one of them, Daelkyr, is a plane where mortal spirits go upon their death. The 13 orbiting planes are separate from each other with no connections between them. They are coexistent with the astral plane, but separate from the ethereal plane, and each of them occasionally becomes coterminous with the material plane, allowing connections between the planes that have stronger or weaker influence over the world of Eberron, depending on their proximity as they orbit around the world through the astral plane. I'll certainly be making a video in more detail about these particular planes of existence because they're quite fascinating. Around the world of Eberron there are 12 orbiting moons, some orbits much longer and wider than others. Here is a picture showing the names and actual sizes of Eberron's moons, but as they orbit around at varying ranges, Eberron's moons range, they've got an apparent size from half the size of the Earth's moon to 9 times the size of Earth's moon. Also, there are stars in the night sky of Eberron, but these are constellations of the draconic gods. So there's Tiamat, Bahamut, Io, Chronepsis, Asteronian, Hlal, Garrix, Tamara, Astalabor, Falazur, and Lendis. They're not actual stars, they are bright artifacts that were placed there by the primal gods, and other stars in the night sky are the spirits of mighty dragons which have passed on and been fixed in the sky. You'd be familiar with that concept if you've watched the movie Dragonheart. The moons of Eberron are also very interesting and play a very important role in the cultures of the people of Eberron, so I'll talk about more about them in detail later. It's a pretty weird cosmology and certainly ripe for some interesting cosmic adventures, but the important points are that Eberron exists outside of the normal cosmology of Dungeons & Dragons, while still having some connections to it. The primal dragons sought a way to play at being primordials and achieved this goal admirably. The world of Eberron has been shielded from the detection by the greater multiverse and its cosmic powers. It's one of the most interesting features in the night sky of Eberron is deeply connected to this property, but more on that in a later video. So the epic dragon beings created this pocket universe and it was perfectly balanced as a system. However, things went terribly wrong. Whatever the source of their conflict, Khorvaire tore Cerberus apart, leaving a ring of dragon shards orbiting around and as a ring around Eberron. Instead of trying to destroy Khorvaire, Eberron wrapped around and trapped the dark dragon and then transformed into the planet, much as it is now. The essence of Cerberus formed into the immortal feathered Coatls, where the blood of Cerberus touched the world of so the blood of Cerberus fountained out and created the immortal feathered Coatls, and where the blood of Cerberus rained down on the world of Eberron, it formed the first dragons, who, as mortal creatures, bred and multiplied and lived a pretty free and awesome existence for a long time. Organised roughly into flights, who bickered and fought amongst themselves, never really organised into any sort of dragon nations or empires. It's never been the nature of dragons to share power easily. This first age ended in absolute disaster though, when from the depths of the world, Khorvaire's dark spawn oozed up up to the surface, and the whole planet got taken over by extremely powerful demon lords for hundreds of thousands of years, while the dragons faced wretched subjugation and slavery. It was a bad time of much badness. If you start messing around with time travel, be advised, this is the bit of history you do not want to go to visit. From the perspective of an observer in the prime material universe, this would have been a period in which the world of Eberron teetered on the edge of becoming a plane of the abyss for a very long time. But because of its detachment from the prime material plane, it never got absorbed fully, and it would have remained that way forever if not for the Quattle Xen'Drik and a blue dragon named Xen'Drik. Working together over the course of centuries, these two visionaries studied the sky and its stars and compared their findings with mysterious patterns that appeared on the Earth. They became convinced that such study could reveal a map of the future, an outline of the myriad paths history might follow. Xen'Drik believed that to be the wisdom of the progenitors, the very blueprint of reality. He called it the Draconic Prophecy, authored by Eberron and Cyrus themselves. What is more, it gave them insights into how to defeat the demon lords at long last. Even though it took them thousands of years, it was impossible to ever decisively end. They did manage to imprison the immortal demon lords, but the price was terrible. Almost the entire race of immortal Quattles sacrificed themselves, forging their essence into pure constructs of force contained the demons. After this, the dragons were a changed race. They had forged unprecedented bonds and come out of the darkness with a new sense of purpose that put to rest their petty differences. Those that remained were stronger and had a much more potent connection to their innate magical nature. But their population was devastated. The survivors gathered together in the land that would become called Argonnessen and held the first conclave, formulating the draconic culture that exists to this day. Tens of thousands of years have passed and the dragons spread out once more to explore the rest of Eberron. This was 60,000 years ago, and now in recorded history and the myths of other races, we see that this was the time that dragons were first encountered by other races on the planet of Eberron. Let's hit the pause button on the history and take a moment to give a broad overview of the lands of Eberron as they exist today, to give some context to what follows so that these are names and not just strange noises. The world of Eberron contains 7 continents. Khorvaire is the main continent of Eberron, consisting of most of the world's people. Khorvaire is home to the 5 nations of Aundir, Breland, Carnath, Thrain, and the devastated former nation of Siri, as well as other smaller states. Most of the published material for the Eberron campaign setting concerns Khorvaire and its residents. Southeast of Khorvaire is the small continent of Aerenal, which is ruled by elves. After the fall of the giant civilization in Xen'Drik, much of the elven race fled to Aerenal. There they established their own nation with a court of undying Baelnorn liches who rule over the living elves. Due south of Khorvaire is the jungle continent of Xen'Drik. Sahuagin tribes guard the seas between Khorvaire and Xen'Drik, and some tribes attack any who attempt to reach Xen'Drik. Others work as guides, often trading, assisting, and negotiating deals with explorers and merchants. Xen'Drik is vast in size, varied in climate, and was once home to the civilization of giants, with whom the dragons risked sharing ancient magical secrets when they first encountered them. This civilization of giants fell into ruin due to the invasion of the psionic alien beings called Quori, an elven rebellion, and then a war against the dragons of Argonnessen some 40,000 years ago, because the elves were actually enslaved by the giants in those early times. Now it's mostly wilderness in Xen'Drik these days, with some areas under tribal domination by the Dark Elves. Xen'Drik and Khorvaire are separated by Shargon's Teeth and the Thunder Sea. One thing that is of note, aside from many ruins to explore, the glittering planetary ring of Sybaris is directly over Xen'Drik, so it orbits directly overhead. So the dragon shards fall most often on this landmass, and the dragon shards are inherently potent magical items. The trade city of Stormreach is located on the northernmost point of Xen'Drik and is the only modern city on the continent. Originally a pirate hideout built among the ruins of the giant city, it now serves as the first stop for travellers to the continent. At the northeastern edge of Shargon's Teeth are located Korthos Island and Korthos Village. For those of you who played the Eberron content on Dungeons & Dragons Online, this should be a familiar area. Sarlona is a continent on the east of Khorvaire. It is the cradle of human civilization. It was once the only continent featuring the presence of the human race. Sarlona is home to both humans and the Kalashtar, who are a culture of people who have a symbiotic bond with the Quori aliens, psychic entities from the region of dreams. I'll go into more detail on them later. Argonnessen and Xen'Drik are for most parts off limits to the lesser non-draconic races. The continent and island are also inhabited by dragon-worshipping human barbarians. Many of the continent's dragons are members of a group known as the Chamber, which interprets the Draconic Prophecy and uses it to shape the world to the dragon's liking. Some dragons rule their own cities and kingdoms. Further south of Xen'Drik is Everron, a continent-sized sheet of ice possibly covering several land masses, and Frostfell is an unexplored land of ice on the far north of the planet. Well, they say unexplored, but it's actually their traditional home of the dwarves, where they came from. Okay, back to the history. Picking up from 60,000 years ago, what followed was a tumultuous age where dragons interacted with the other races. Kingdoms of giants and titans in Xen'Drik, primitive clans of dwarves in Frostfell, nomadic groups of shifters in Sarlona, and nascent goblins in Khorvaire. Goblins are quite important. I'll get to those in a minute. The dragons were free to act as they chose, with these lesser races, some benevolent, others malevolent. Some taught the young races their magic just to see what would happen, others subjected them to the same sort of slavery that the dragons experienced at the hands of the demon lords. The dragons became fractured and began to fight among one another, again as their power corrupted them. And then, from the depths, in the pit of five sorrows, the essence of Tiamat rose up and started to dominate the dragons one by one. They fell under her evil power. Tainted spawn, Tiamat's spawn, were birthed, and the elder dragons realized that this could be the doom of their entire race, if not the entire world. The conclave gathered once more in an enormous natural formation in the heart of Argonnessen. There, the students of the sacred Draconic Prophecy presented their findings, and they were shocking. What they found was that as the dragons spread across the world, they increased the power of Khyber and of Tiamat as well. And so, all the dragons were ordered to return to Argonnessen on pain of death, and have remained there ever since, in a nutshell. And so, on to the next age. The age of giants and their mighty empires came next. Where the dragons have a magical knowledge rich in their own codes and traditions, the giants were much more wild and dangerous, delving into the arts that the dragons dared not explore. This may have been why the Quori took an interest in Eberron in the first place and arrived there during this age, or it could have just been a conjunction of that plane of existence that they came from. This directly or indirectly led to the fall of the giant empire and their war with the dragons. From this point on, two otherworldly realms become critically important to the flow of events. The outer planes of Dal Quor, the land of dreams, the realm of dreams, and Xoriat, the realm of madness. As mentioned, the material plane, which is home to just Eberron and its moons, is enfolded by 13 planes of existence within its own astral zone, deep within the ethereal plane. Many of these planes have aspects of both alignment and elemental forces, the outer and inner planes in D&D terms. All of the planes overlap with Eberron in some way. They influence and are influenced by the material plane. This influence waxes and wanes. Scholars don't know exactly why this is, but there is a complex relationship between the planes, the moons, the dragon marks, and so on. It's pretty fascinating, really. Dal Quor has had a strong influence on the giants and the humans of Eberron. As a realm of dreams and fringes, the fringes of this plane are shaped by the minds, particularly the memories of all those who sleep and dream. So Dal Quor is intimately connected to the sentient beings of Eberron. There is a dark core at the heart of this plane, shaped by the nightmare force known as the Dreaming Dark. The Quori are nightmarish beings from within this plane. Their life cycle is somehow connected to Eberron. They would be immortal spirit beings, but this influence causes the Quori to periodically die and be reborn in new forms that coincide with major changes happening on the world of Eberron and its sentient races. 40,000 years ago, the Quori invaded Eberron in an attempt to prevent the dawning of a new age, and it was the giants, using extremely powerful magic, a lot like the elven mythals in Faerun, that severed all connection between Dal Quor and Eberron. However, the Quori found ways and have established a new strategy by manipulating the human race of Eberron. First, they took mortal hosts and through them bred a new race by mixing humans, demons, and elves, creating a race called the Inspired. Charming and powerful, the Inspired work to openly infiltrate and become allies of the various nations of Khorvaire. And through that, they further the goals and aims of the Quori. There are 6 known subspecies of Quori. Suchoras are among the weakest and most numerous of the Quori. In their own world, they appear as great red and black worms with 2 massive pincered arms and lots of smaller useless arms beneath them, and chitinous armor plates. Dream Masters are snake-like with 4 arms ending in pincers and a humanoid torso, a void of darkness where their head should be. Dulora, whirlwinds of eyes, wings and shadow, wreathed in smoky shadows. Hashalak are composed of hundreds of translucent tendrils that surround a point of blue light. Kularak are high-ranking masters of nightmare that rarely live Dal Quor, thankfully. They're kind of like the architects of nightmare, so they're the ones that orchestrate things. And Sureva are enforcers that have segmented many-legged bodies which end in powerful scaled headless torsos that have 2 handless arms from which blades of energy erupt. The ultimate goal of the Quori is to prevent the dawning of another new age by taking over the entire world of Eberron and taking complete control of the dreams of its people in order to manipulate the dream world of Dal Quor however they wish. So, not good. However, there actually are good aligned Quori who don't want this to happen. The Kalashtar are a race of psionic people and are descendants of a group of human monks from Adar who allowed themselves to be possessed by good aligned Quori refugees fleeing Dal Quor. Okay, on to Xoriat. Dhakaan was an ancient goblinoid empire that dominated the continent of Khorvaire until the coming of the extraplanar Daelkyr 16,000 years ago. The Dhaakani goblinoids could not stand against the might and madness of this alien invasion which just came out of nowhere. By the time the Orcish gatekeeper druids bound the Daelkyr and their servants in the depths of Khyber, the empire was a shadow of its former glory, never to be regained. Over the course of millennia it collapsed into savagery, and by the time humanity arrived on Khorvaire, all that was left of the empire was ruins and several clans trying to preserve the remains of their ancient lore and dreaming about the re-establishment of their empire, but it was impossible. They were too fractured into spurious clans that were fighting amongst themselves and against other threats which they didn't have the capacity to form up against. The Daelkyr are lords of the plane of Xoriat, immortal and immensely powerful. They typically choose to manifest as handsome humanoids, bearing armor and weapons made from chitin and raw muscle. Most notable thing about them is that they are basically the creators of all sorts of other monsters. They are believed to be at least 6 Daelkyr still trapped beneath Eberron in the depths of Khyber. That's what the people of Eberron call the Underdark, by the way, Khyber. Dyrn, the Corruptor, trapped somewhere beneath the Elden reaches, creator of the goblinoid mutant Dalgaunts and Dalgrims. Balashira, Lord of Eyes, creator of the Beholders. Orlask, the Master of Stone, creator of Medusas, Basilisks and other petrifying creatures. Curzin, Prince of Slime and Ooze who lives beneath the Shadow Marches. Curzin created a parasitic ooze that can control a host creature or burst from their flesh. There are more Daelkyr, and they are all very unpleasant. Xoriat itself is basically the Far Realm, a chaotic knot of twisted and intermixed dimensions, weird, nonsensical, monstrous life forms, and beings of utter evil. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about all of the more traditional races of D&D, and I'll quote directly from the Wikipedia because I could not be more succinct, and it's really quite a good overview. I'll just add some bits here and there. Elves are relative newcomers to the continent of Khorvaire. Originally, the elves were slaves to the race of giants, as I mentioned, on the continent of Xen'Drik, so that was their ancestral homeland. They escaped too and founded a nation on the smaller continent of Aerenal. Aerenal elves in Eberron practice a form of ancestor worship. On Aerenal, these elves deemed to be particularly beneficial to the race are magically revived as the Undying, so it's a position of honour. The lich-like beings are enchanted with positive energy instead of the negative energy that animates undead. The Undying act as counsellors to the Aerenal elves, and the elves have occupied parts of Khorvaire sporadically, only recently forming their own nation there known as Valenar, which is one of the more martial and kind of hardcore nations of Khorvaire. Valenar elves hold different traditions from Aerenal elves and stress bringing glory to their Xen'Drik ancestors through combat. Dwarves, by legend, originate from the Arctic subcontinent of Frostfell and now live in a region called the Moorholds. In addition to their traditional role as elite warriors, they also put much importance on wealth, and their dragon-marked house Kundarak, is used throughout Khorvaire for banking. So they are the banking system, kind of like the goblins of Harry Potter. Halflings usually live in nomadic tribes on the Talenta Plains, where they train dinosaurs as mounts. They're quite famous for riding pterosaurs and raptors. They are widely distributed people who tend to blend and take on the culture of whatever people they live with amongst, though. So fairly typical of halflings throughout the multiverse. In the Eberron campaign setting, unlike other campaign settings, orcs are given to spirituality and nature worship. They established successful societies, learning druidic secrets from the black dragon Varak, while the goblinoid race built their mighty empire. The orc societies took a massive blow during the Daelkyr invasion 9,000 years ago, though it was the orcs, now known as the gatekeepers, who were able to stop the invasion by sealing the Daelkyr beneath Eberron and severing the link between Eberron and the Daelkyr home plane of Xoriat. So another massive magical ritual, kind of like a mythal from the Elves of Faerun. The gatekeeper druidic sect maintains a presence in Eberron, albeit one largely concerned with defending the world from outsiders, aberrations, and other unnatural foes. Your average orc is pretty stoic and aware that their race basically saved the whole world and are still doing so. So they're like the Gondor sacrifices their lives to protect everyone from Mordor. While the other races squabble and fight in ridiculous wars, seemingly oblivious to how it all could have come down right down the gurgler, if it had not been for the gatekeepers protecting reality as they know it, the opportunity to play an orc paladin who is insufferably vain jerk, who even worse makes a very good point, well, that's just fantastic. Gnomes commonly live in their own country of Zelago and are considered excellent shipwrights, the masters of elemental binding, information seekers, and social manipulators. Because of widespread immigration, though, any race can be found anywhere on Khorvaire, including the Shulasaka, who are humanoids who possess some similarity to Yuan-Ti, but possess feathers covering their scales, and especially powerful ones also possess feathered wings. So they revere Coatls, obviously, who created their race and dwell in the ruins of Crescent on the Talenta Plains on Khorvaire and help the remaining Coatl prevent the rise of the Rakshasa and their Rajas. Rakshasas are part of an evil organization called the Lords of Dust, who scheme on Khorvaire to release their godlike Raja masters from within Khyber. These evil spirits are the undisputed masters of illusion, trickery, and subversion, and they have a hand in the politics of practically every nation of Khorvaire. So you can see there's a lot of interweaving political intrigue that goes on between the different nations, with the inspired, the Rakshasas lurking around, savage races, things like that. And of course, ancient empires who seek a return to the glory days. Alrighty, there is much more to cover on the modern world of Eberron, the nation's techno-magical civilization, ancient ruins, dark secrets, demi-realms of deep Khyber, dragon lands, elven lands, the many unique faiths and religions of Eberron, a world without incarnate gods, the influence of the Nine Hells or Celestia, and also the story of the Last Great War. But that should hopefully shed some light and familiarise a lot of you with what Eberron is all about, where it came from, and how it became the juicy playground of adventure it is today. Don't forget to check out the new merchandise in the mighty Gluestick store. Wear those shirts as a warning that you are a dungeon master trained in the ways of the Gluminati, a great sage of the storytelling craft. If you're not a subscriber already, check out the fairly massive playlist of Monstrology videos that I've created for your infotainment, and binge watch that to your heart's content. Click the like button at the very least, or comment down below. I love to interact with fellow fans of the hobby. You can also join the Discord channel and come and chat with fellow gamers from around the world, even play games over voice chat in combination with other online tools if you're having trouble finding a game in your local community. The Gluminati will show you how. They're a very, very friendly bunch. Check out the link in the description text below where you can visit Chrono, who have a new featured game every day that you can get a massive discount on. I've picked up a few of them myself and added them to my Steam library and the Steam Guild for all those games which I haven't played yet because I'm so busy. Purchases through that link also help support the channel, so many thanks to those of you who check that out on a regular basis. I appreciate it. Consider becoming a patron of the channel on Patreon. You are in complete control of how much you wish to contribute, and you get some perks such as seeing the videos and the full scripts of them before anyone else. Also, you have the power to make special video requests from me directly, and I'll be happy to talk to you about your campaigns, monsters design, all that sort of stuff. You've got unprecedented access to anything that I can research and provide for you. I upload videos at a seemingly inhuman pace, covering monster ecologies of all kinds, a comprehensive series of videos on giants, dragons, and the cosmology of D&D, devils, demons, celestials, planes of travel, spelljamming, and the occasional rambles about how to craft an excellent gaming session for your friends and family. So hit that notification bell, join the Gluminati. As always, happy gaming, thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.